Now, mental health is a topic that we all should be very aware of. So, if you're running a business, this episode is perfect for you because mental health is something that oftentimes entrepreneurs ignore. But when you really start to dig into it, and that's one of the things that I did as I started doing more interviews, I realized there's a whole lot more to this topic. So, we're going to talk about that in today's episode. Now, when I first started doing the Business Talk Library it was something that I thought, okay, we're going to focus on business topics and we're going to give people what they need in that area, all the tips, the insights, and it was great. But there was an early interview that I did that really brought the topic of mental health to mind because when it comes down to mental health, it's not something that you usually hear a lot of people talk about when it comes down to being an entrepreneur or bringing in business. But if you really think about it, the whole journey of being an entrepreneur, I mean, it is a combination of, what's going on in your personal life, what's going on in your business. I mean, what's going on with you individually, and all of that adds up. And the truth is, if there isn't a way to really address it and deal with it, I mean, sometimes it can be overwhelming. And there was an early interview that I had done with, a gentleman that was, he was a NCAA college football bowl champion, enjoyed winning several rings. And then he also went on to play in the NFL. And there was, after he left the NFL, because he said, something that changed where he had left the game of football and he decided to start a business. And, he was running a very successful business at the time. But there was something very big that happened in his life because he focused on working with children with disability and running camps, and they were doing great. But there was something about himself that he didn't realize. And it was when he had this very extremely traumatic moment. And when he shared that on the show, it really helped me take a step back to say, okay, all right, you know what? Being in business and just life and compounded on top of that is so much more than just the numbers and the insight. So I wanted to go back and play that clip for you to help you understand, like, this is what really started to pivot the discussion and why it became such a regular part of the Business Talk Library. So enjoy the clip.
Everything kind of hit the fan in 2016. I made an attempt, unfortunately, on my life. They called it a bipolar blackout. I blacked out for 8 hours and I don't know what I did. I don't know where I was. I threw all my cell phones away, my watches, everything away. Nobody could find me. And that later on that night, they found me when I was in my car. I ran into a brick wall doing about 120 and I almost killed myself. So that was the day that I lost my company. In that day, it was completely done. We closed the next day. I checked myself into a mental institution. I spent 4 weeks in a mental institution to try to figure out what was wrong with me. They came to find out I was diagnosed with CTE, which is brain injuries from football, head injuries, also with PTSD and bipolar 2. So this was all brand new news to me. I had never been diagnosed with any disabilities or anything like that, but funny because I work with all children with disabilities, but now I'm in the position that I have a disability and I understand how to work with them, but I don't understand how to live with it. So it was a new place for me. So I had to live away from my family for a year. I had lived in an apartment away from my family until the doctors could tell me that, you're okay. So I was given 7 different medications for just my head, and took that for about a year. Got back home, got back to a good place, and met you at our software company we work for. That was my first job I'd had in a long time outside of working for myself. But so it was real hard to come back and really interact with people. It's something I hadn't done in over almost 2 years, but especially on medication. So I felt like every day was kind of fake. Every day I came in there, I'm like, hey, how you guys doing? But inside, I feel like I don't want to be here. I don't know any of these people. I don't trust this. I just had that feeling inside of me like, it's just not right. Something's not right. So my wife and I, we experimented with holistic medicines, different types of things, but really landed on CBD. And reason being is because I started studying the cannabinoids in the system, in our system, and different cannabinoids, they affect different things in the system. And not going too deep into that, but I found a company that has a patented system that allows these supplements to absorb into my system at 100% rate, which is different from anywhere else. And that's kind of what's helped me get off all my medications, get me to a place where I can do this. You catch me a year ago, I could not sit on this video. I wouldn't sit on the video with you. I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't have the confidence to do it.
And everyone's situation may not be that intense, but one of the things that interview really reminded and brought to mind is that, there are so many, complications that we probably faced at different places in our life, different times in our life. And in some respects, we don't always realize that the things that happened to you before you started your business, like those things have compounded over time, and it may definitely have an impact on where you are right now. And so when I was talking to Marcel and we talked a little bit more in that interview, something that he definitely brought up, with, playing football and, in college and playing football in the NFL, the brain injuries was something that he didn't really think about, but all of that compounded on top of where he was with, the new stresses that he had to deal with the business. With things going on with family and like I said, of moving and just having to deal with that. Hey, you know what? You walked away from the NFL. You walked away from an NFL career and walked away from your contract because that was something that you just felt like you did not want to do anymore. And all of that compounded to leading up to this very epic moment for him that caused a tremendous life-changing. Now, I'm very proud of him to have been able to recover and to, navigate down that road. But one of the things that he talked about that really helped him navigate that road to recovery was really having someone to talk to, because he was saying that, his wife, she noticed that there were some things that were a little off, and, she started asking more questions about it and stuff. And, for him is he didn't open up to have that conversation to talk to her about it before he had the suicidal episode. But one of the things that he said is by her continuing to try to get him to talk about it, it did help, because after that incident, he knew that he was at a place where he was like, you know what, I do need help. And, it was very, very, very helpful for him and very beneficial that he knew that he had someone in his life that knew something wasn't right, but yet they still loved him and wanted to support him. And so one of the next things that I wanted to bring to attention is just, I've talked to a therapist that had her on the show and talked about her building her business as a therapist. But also we talked about, how can people really get help in this area? And one of the things that she pointed out was there's a big challenge in this space, because there are a lot of people who are, trying to help their loved ones, trying to help their friends, trying to help their clients. But there's a very big mistake that they are making. And I think she does a great job of bringing to light, that mistake, because as you're leading a business, this is something important to keep in mind, because you have, customers that you're working with, you have employees on your team, you have business partners. And if you're not using what she's saying in this, then you could be, putting the people around you at a disadvantage. But as you start to really embrace what she talks about, I think it will not only help you personally with your mental health, but it'll also help the people in business around you. So enjoy the clip.
meet people where they are. We can't expect people to be on a certain level if we don't first meet them at the level where they're at, and help them to create a vision for where they want to go, and help guide them and help them create a strategy for how to get there. But a lot of times we're just like pushing people, like, you just need to do this, you just need to do this. And some people either just don't have the capacity to do certain things in the moment, or just don't have the willingness. And we have to be able to discern which is which. Like, is this, okay, they just don't have the skill set? And if they don't have the skill set, okay, can I provide this for them? Or do I need to refer them to somebody or connect them with somebody that can give them what they need so that they can be successful? I help them to see that it's not so much about fixing ourselves, so to speak, but it's really about learning how to manage our life. Because there are just going to be some things about our lives that we can't change. There are going to be some things that we just can't avoid as it relates to our lives. And so giving them tools, and that's what I really emphasize, like, the whole purpose of therapy is to provide people with tools so that they can manage their lives.
Now, I don't know if you're like me and my family, where growing up, I mean, therapy just wasn't a very real topic that came up. A lot of times, and from when I talk to a lot of people, they're either, hey, you either suck it up or you get through it, or hey, just ignore it, or hey, that's not a real issue. But I do think that therapy, or having someone to talk to, is very, very important, because it helps you navigate, the thoughts, the feelings, whatever is going on. It can be that thing that helps you navigate it. Now, the challenge that comes is that a lot of times when people are talking to someone about what's going on, or talking to someone about what they're going through, a lot of times they're probably talking to the wrong person. I mean, they're probably talking to somebody who's not really taking the time to understand, where are you really at, or where is that person really at? So it's something that I always keep in mind, even as I run my own business and when I'm dealing with my clients. I mean, my business is accounting and finance. And so I'm not necessarily into therapy, but when it comes down to dealing with my clients, a lot of times business owners, there's so many emotions that they have around money and about, the business strategy, the success or the lack of success that they think that they're seeing in their business. And I often spend a lot of time really working through those emotions, helping people get comfortable about, hey, where are you at right now? What are your goals? And then, hey, what are the tools we can put in place to help you make those gradual steps there? And that becomes a very huge thing for them, because as a business owner, or even when I'm working with people in my business where they want to move their career forward, it becomes very overwhelming if you don't have a way to break it down. And one of the most vital ways, I think, of learning how to develop and understand where are you at today is a topic that really came up in another interview with an author that wrote a book called Shut the Five Up. And, the title was very catchy to me, but when I got a chance to read the book before it actually came out. And so when I took the time to really read the book, and I had to write a recommendation for that book, because I think the book does a really good job of helping people understand or demystify a topic that, I'm not gonna lie, in my family, it just wasn't a topic. I mean, even in my community, it just wasn't a topic that we were going to talk about. And if it was talked about, people really joked about it. They laughed it off. They called it crazy. But as I get older and as I become more successful in business, one of the things that I realize is that if you're not taking time for what this book is talking about, you're going to have a whole lot of things in your life that are just going to go off the rails, or things that just aren't going to go right. Like, you're not going to be at your best if you're not implementing this. So I definitely wanted to bring that topic into this conversation of mental health, because I think there's so many great tips that he provided. And I think the whole concept of what he was doing in his book and what he was sharing was great. So enjoy the clip.
I basically told him, I was like, hey, you need to shut the 5 up. He said, excuse me, what did you say? But when you sit still, it is very, very difficult because we're just not wired that way. So the two biggest things, the two biggest areas that people struggle with is finding the place. So finding a place that is in silence. So you want to find a place that is comfortable. Like I'm sitting in a nice big chair right now. That's comfortable to me. It may look different for you, and of course it will look different based on your surroundings. But you want to find a quiet place. I told my wife, hey, I'm going upstairs because I'm doing a podcast. I let her know to take care of the dogs and all that kind of stuff. But similarly so, I would do the same thing if I was going to get my shut the 5 time up in. And the second thing is to figure out how to clear your mind. You really want to think of nothing. And the first time that you think about this, of course, you are thinking of something, but you really, really want to clear your head. So things that, little tips and tricks that I teach in the book is, you can certainly use, earplugs, to make sure that, you can't hear, so that you don't have distractions. Another tip that I like is using a cloth. So shutting the 5 up is basically you want to find your quiet place. You want to set a timer for 5 minutes, and you want to just clear your mind. And for 5 minutes, you want to work on your breathing, and you want to just focus on nothing but, maybe you're at the cloth, kind of rubbing the cloth between your fingers while your eyes are closed. That's a powerful thing because you're thinking about just this, and you can clear your thoughts. I want to get this book into the hands of the masses. I believe that there is mass panic and chaos right now. And I believe sincerely that the concepts in the book can provide peace to anyone who reads it. And especially with the COVID-19 kind of stuff going on right now, it's crazy. There's virtual funerals that are going on. There's social distance. Got to be 6 feet away from people. We're all social beings. It's very hard to do. There's just, people are losing their jobs. There's all kinds of crazy stuff going on right now, but you can find peace by following the concepts in the.
So now that was a topic, like I said, when I was growing up, we didn't really talk about getting introspection. We didn't really talk about, thinking about what's going on the inside, but it's something that I think is a very important topic that we all have to think about. I mean, we all need to really take that time to really understand what's going on with us. And I want to bring up a final clip. And this one was one that I think really capsulized a big issue that a lot of us are facing. And it becomes another solution, I think, that really helps us take things to the next level and really helps us clarify the issues. Because this next clip was me interviewing an amazing entrepreneur that does a lot of consulting work with influencers and other entrepreneurs. And what we often don't realize is a lot of these influencers, yes, they're on social media and they're making, anywhere from $250,000 to, $1 million plus for posting content on social media. And it's, it looks great from the outside and we're like, man, they're just living the life. But there's a lot more behind the scenes that a lot of them deal with, and a lot of them deal with mental health issues. And this entrepreneur definitely helps them work through that a lot. And there's something that he brought up and a concept that he calls, spitting fire. And how do you get to that point where you're able to spit fire and you're able to protect your mental health? So I think if you're a business owner or, even in just life, in your marriage, in your relationships, in your job, this is a tip that I think you can really, really apply. So I would say definitely pay attention to this next one.
And so when you talk about creating content, create it because I've coached a lot of entrepreneurs and they know the algorithm, they know Instagram, LinkedIn, and they know that if I put together a content calendar, I can generate exposure for my brand. The problem is that when it becomes heavy, don't do it, right? I mean, your content should not be a burden for you to produce content. And so what I like to talk to people about is before you spit fire, who are you? Simon Sinek wrote the book, Start With Why. I kind of disagree with that, unless they know who you are, right? And all the examples he gives, Apple, Martin Luther King, the Wright brothers, those are all people that others knew about already. We know Apple. So when they start with why, we resonate with it. And so entrepreneurs have read that book. They know what they do. They do it really well. They know why they do it, and they don't know who they are, man. They got an identity crisis. So you got these influencers that are depressed, that are hurting inside, and they're fantastic content creators. So I tell people, start with who. Who are you, and what is your identity, and what gives you joy, and what makes you just get so fired up to do what you do? Find that, and once you find that, spit fire on it, and that's your content, right? And then if your hair's all wiggity whack, or you're not in the perfect, the lighting's bad, or you're, whatever happens, the content will shine through.
And that is a very, very good point. And I think it is the great one to wrap up on, because as I talk to so many different business owners, and, you know, they get to this point where they're worried about this, they're thinking about this, they're thinking about that. And it's just like, you know, let's go back to, who are you? When you really understand who you are, and not so much defining yourself by what you're doing or by the number of people that are coming to watch what you're doing, but when you really understand who you are and you operate from that place, it changes the game. So I think, you know, mental health is a topic that you should definitely be talking about, not only just listening to the show, but talk about it in your business. I mean, talk about it with your spouse and your relationships and your friendships. I mean, talk about it with your employees in your business, with your coworkers, your business partners, because if it is not addressed, it's going to be something that catches up with you in a very bad way. And you definitely don't want that to happen. So definitely thank you so much for tuning into the Business Talk Library. I know this is a little bit of a different episode, and you know, the topic is a little bit heavier than usual, but I do think that it is very important because, you know, being in business, it's not all about, you know, numbers and money and finances. Part of being in business, it's really about you. I mean, because you are a business owner, like you are at the center of whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're investing, whether you're operating in a business, or whether you're building a software, like you are still there. And if you aren't healthy and that mental space that you have, if that's not healthy, that's gonna bleed over into the business, and it's gonna cause some damage and some stress, not only to you, but it could possibly be to your clients, your customers. So I always tell people, it is very, very, very important for you to understand your own mental health and figure out how can you actually do things. And we talked about a couple of practical things here: is finding somebody that you can talk to, taking time to get introspection. And we also talked about, you know what, really taking time to understand who you are and not getting that confused with what you do. I'm Terrell Turner. This is the Business Talk Library on RETV. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday at 6 p.m. to see more of the Business Talk Library on RETV.